story. Welcome back to another card making video here at my YouTube channel. I hope you are all well today, and I am glad you are here. I'm looking forward to making this fun, bright flower card with you today. So let's get started. Today I'm going to be using the new March 2023 All to New Mini Delight set. This is one of their subscription plans that you can subscribe to. It comes with a stamp set and a coordinating die set. It is a small but mighty little set that you can have a lot of fun with. I have gone ahead and prepped a few things that we will need today. We're going to use some distressed oxide inks along with a stencil from Altenew, the Classy Stripes stencil. And I have cut our card base, which is a standard 5.5 by 4.25 top folding portrait or landscape card. Another piece of Neenah Solar White 80-pound cardstock cut slightly smaller. And I have 2 masks cut out from the die cut. Now, this is where I'm going to tell you that I ended up not using those masks. So I ended up shifting. I couldn't get the masks to work the way that I wanted them to with the flowers. So we're going to do some stamping and some die cutting instead. I'm going to show you how easy it is to use your Misti Stamping Tool to line up your stamps on your die cut perfectly every time. So I'm taking my stamp and putting it down onto a piece of paper. The paper that I have in there right now is just a simple, plain piece of printer paper. It's nothing fancy. We just need to get an image down so we can line up our die cut. Gonna stamp that really quickly with some picked raspberry distressed oxide ink. Again, at this point, it doesn't really matter what color you use. You just stamp it and get an image down. So I also took and cut out 2 flowers from Neenah Solar White cardstock that we're going to use for this next part. I only need to use one of the negative spaces, but I have 2 flowers because we're going to put 2 flowers on the front of our card. So only need one of the negative spaces. So now I'm going to line up the negative space. It took me a minute, but I lined up the negative space around the die cut, around the stamped image that I stamped on the printer paper. And what you want to do is you'll notice that it's hard in the video because I didn't do a close-up of it, but there is a little bit of a white space around there, and so you just want to hold that in place. I'm going to put my magnet there, push that down, and now I'm going to slot the die back into the negative space. Keep in mind also that my stamp is still over there on my Misti door, and I didn't take that off of there. So now it's in the exact same place it was before. I'm going to stamp it up with my picked raspberry ink, get a good saturation on there. And I'm going to close the door with my little tool and get a good impression on there. It's a thick stamp, so you got to press hard. And obviously it came up onto the stamp because I forgot to put down some adhesive. And so you can see how it's stamped right onto the die cut. I'm going to go ahead and put it back in there, and I'm going to stamp it up or go over it again, simply because I just wanted to have a little bit more coverage. Like I said, it's a big stamp, and it has a lot of area that needs to be covered with the ink. And so it's a pretty solid stamp. There's not a lot of detail into it. So I'm going to stamp that again, get another good impression on it. Pick that up from my stamp, and you can see there's our pretty pink dahlia. I'm going to go ahead and repeat the same process for the second flower. Again, I can use the same first image, place that down. I'm going to get my die cut lined up back in there. And with this particular stamp, I found it was best for me to find one little divot that was easy to identify in order for me to get that lined up. There's a lot of edging on this stamp that can make it a little challenging to get it slotted in correctly. Coming in now with some Seedless Preserves Distress Oxide ink, and repeating the same process as I did before with the picked raspberry, just going in and giving that a good impression. Again, picking it up from the stamp. I should have adhered it with some temporary adhesive, and both times I forgot. So there we are. Put that back in. It's gonna go right back where it was exactly, because thank you to the Misti, I didn't have to move the stamp, so it's gonna line up perfectly again. Pop that off. And we have a very pretty purple flower to go with our pink one. Like I said, my original plan was to do some masking. It just didn't work out. I went ahead and repeated that same die cut and stamping process with the leaves that were also included with this set. The leaves are stamped in Rustic Wilderness. Here's just a little close-up of the flowers and how we're going to put that together. Okay, moving on to the next step. I wanted to take the Classy Stripes stencil and just create a striped border on the edge. So I've taped my stencil to the bottom or to the back of my paper with just some painter's tape, and I'm going to use a little blending brush and some speckled egg distress oxide ink. I'm going to lay another piece of scratch paper down over the other side of our card because I don't want any ink to get onto the front of our card. So I'm just going to kind of tuck that behind the stencil a little bit and make sure that that area is protected. Going to take some ink. I am not wanting to do a fully striped background all the way down. I just want to run it. I kind of want it to just be a fading striped background all the way down. So some areas lighter than the other. I kind of just wanted it to look really rough on the edges, fading and sort of soft. And I'm just taking my time and coming down. This stencil, because I did not do any pixie spray on it, it does move quite a bit if you don't hold it. So the other thing I found that helped was taking my brush and only going in one direction rather than going back and forth. So I'm just holding the stencil down with my fingers as I'm coming down with the brush, taking my time, making sure that I get good coverage, but not super perfect coverage, to find that balance of where I want it to be. Stencils are one of those things that they have such versatility, but there's a great learning curve with it, and I know that a lot of people have struggled with them, and so they are probably probably my weak point as well. So something I need to improve my technique with, but they're a lot of fun too, and definitely you get a lot of great value for your they're a great price point. Okay, so finish that up. And I'm gonna just slowly pull that stencil off of there, get that up, and was able to protect that other side. And like I said, I just wanted a fading stripe, soft uh, edge over there. So now I'm going to work on the sentiment. I'm gonna put the background that we just did into my Misti again. And I'm going to use, it comes with the sentiments that say, you brighten my life, my day, my world. And I decided to go with, you brighten my life. And I'm just going to pull those out, and I'm going to set the ones that I don't need off to the side there. Okay. and I want the sentiment to go at the top. But I need to kind of see where the flowers are going to go so that I don't, one, run out of room for the flowers, or two, I don't run out of space for the sentiment at the top. So I'm going to stamp the sentiment first, but I'm going to use the flowers as sort of a placement so I can see where those need to go. So I'm just going to line those up there, figure out exactly where I want them to go. As I said before, my original intention was to do some masking with this card, but I just couldn't get it to work, and it was like 3 days of trying to get it to work. And eventually, you just gotta pivot and change direction. So I'm gonna come in with my sentiment. I'm gonna see where that needs to go. And this is the part of card making that is just, you just gotta fiddle with it and take your time and adjust. Little stamps are notorious for not staying exactly where you want them to stay, but that's okay. We'll just get that in there, straighten those up. I'm going to use my magnet to hold my card in place. Now I'm going to move the flowers out of the way and close my door, get that stamped up with some black ink. I, 9 times out of 10, unless there's a specific reason, will almost always stamp my sentiments in black ink. I just think that it makes the sentiment bold without distracting from the main elements of the card, which in this instance are obviously the flowers that we did. So I'm going to come in and do a little bit more. Always stamp sentiments twice. I just find that it helps to really crisp it up and get a good bold sentiment on the front of your card. And so now all that's left to do is to just put it together. And while I am doing that, we'll just chat a little bit about things that I learned while making this card, because I learn something about stamping every time I make a card or every time that I paper craft. And for me, the lesson today was even having the best laid plans in card making can change quickly. I don't know if the stamp itself just is not a stamp that's designed to be masked, but every time I tried to mask it, I kept having a white gap between the flowers. And trust me, I cannot even tell you how many times I probably wasted way more cardstock and masking paper than I would ever care to admit. And finally, I just realized that it wasn't going to work. And so, why not just I thought, well, do I just scrap the whole idea, come up with another design, or do I just, take a little think about it and see if I can, come up with a different plan? And it can be very frustrating when you're card making to have an idea and then for it to not work out. But usually my advice on for when that happens, if you're a card maker, is to just pause, just step away for a little bit, and you'll 9 times out of 10 you'll realize that there's probably another equally easy and equally viable solution that you can do that will keep your card on the same basic path that you were on. And for me, with this card in particular, it was just switching from masking to die cutting. So just really quick, going along here with my Lawn Fawn liquid adhesive and my needle tip applicator around the edges there. I didn't want there to be any dimension in this card. I could have popped these up on some dimensional adhesive, but I wanted to keep everything pretty flat on the front of the card. And so I'm just taking my handy dandy little tweezers and I'm gonna put that in place. And then I realized once I got this onto here, of the flowers on the front of the cardstock, that I probably should have tucked in the leaves before I glued the flowers down on the paper, but I forgot to. So I'm going to come in here and tuck those behind. I'm going to put a little bit of adhesive up underneath this leaf right here and glue that down, and then come in with the other two and do the same thing. Again, like I said, this was where I realized that it was a little challenging to lift up the flowers because I had already sealed them down. So that's another lesson learned with this card today is think about what you have to glue and stick down before you actually glue and stick down your items. So that in there. But I really do like this set. It's been a lot of fun to play with. I do have a couple of more cards that I have already made and that I will be sharing in some future videos. It challenged me. It's a stamp set that has a lot of potential, and it's just been a lot of great fun to play with. So I am looking forward to sharing it again with you in a couple of more videos. So if I can just get this underneath here, tap that into there. And it was hard, but I did not add any shine or any glitter or shimmer to this card. I just decided to leave it pretty plain and let the flowers sort of speak for themselves. That is our card today. I am so happy that you joined me. I apologize for the much rambling. I hope you have a great day. Here are a couple of close-up looks of the card. You can read more about it on my blog. I will see you again next time.